hope it's working. Welcome to the BeauxArts bunker station. Today we're going to have some fun with some watercolors. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of cool stuff. And it's going to be simple, fun. It's not meant to be hardcore and specific about things. I'm going to cover a lot of things: paper, a little bit of brushes, paint, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to get started with paper, and I'm going to do just my table setup now. Watercolor paper is all over the place. You can have a lot of different types. This is one of my favorites here. It's 140 pound, 25% cotton. It's great for moving things around and getting started, but when you want to do something serious, I recommend the Arches. 100% cotton. Oh, it's luscious. And hey, I see Dina's watching today, and Ed. Awesome. Thanks for joining me today. And I'm going to show some cool things for Dina, especially because she just did some adventuring today with some markers. So I'm going to show her some tips and tricks with that. You can watercolor with some mixed media paper. This is a different type of, ooh, look at that. I didn't even know I had that in there. Paper that is not sealed all the way around like your Arches is. This is sealed all around, as you can see on the black. So this is called a block. This is also called a block, even though it's sealed on that. And then we have books and such that you can watercolor in, little journal skis there. Also, this is new on the market. This is black watercolor paper, and I'll show you some cool things with that tonight too, because it's fun. I also want to show you this. This is also one of my other favorite watercolor papers. It does not have cotton in it, but for the price point, it's awesome. I usually rip the sheets out. You can see that I already have, and I tape it down to what I'm working on. So that's just a quick overview of some paper, and I'm going to rip this sheet out. Oops. And this is a pad. That's a big pad. It's a big boy. Look how thick that is. Love it. So here's my paper, and I'm going to use some amazing artist tape to tape it down to my watercolor board that I have. This is a really neat surface to work on for watercolor. As you can see, I've used it before. And a little shout out to Emily of EPR Studios. I love her. And so I'm just going to tape it down just a little bit. You can cut it or you can rip it. See, I'll show you can rip it. It's good stuff to use. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of be random tonight. So I hope that that's okay with you guys. And feel free to shout out and throw some sort of comment if you want, or question in the comments. There's about a 30-second delay, so if I don't get back to you right away, it's because there's a little bit of a delay on that. So I'm going to show you some marker stuff. Most markers are water-based, so this is for like the Tombow dual brushes that are out there. I couldn't find my collection of that. So sorry, Dina, can't quite show you that, but I'm going to show you really quickly. This is the same type of marker that you have ish in the way it's made. So the finer the point line, the harder time you're going to have to get it activated with water. So just know the finer the line, the less pigment it puts down, so then it's harder to work with. So here's just a scribble, And since it's a cheaper pen, it's going to leave a little bit of a demarcation line so you can see that right there. But you can still pull out that color and do some really great scribbling and scrobbling, whatever you want to call it, and then pull that out. You can also put it somewhere else too. So if you don't want to necessarily have line marks, although that kind of will make it look cool, you can scribble on a piece of paper and just kind of pick it up and move it down. With reds, I specifically wanted to show you this tonight with the red. When you do this trick, reds, and sometimes these pens aren't necessarily made for making watercolors, so you'll have a color shift. So I don't know if you can really see this, but the red turned into a pink. So just know that when you're going to be working, because that can be kind of frustrating if you're looking for specific colors. And if you have tips and tricks you want to share, always feel free to let me know and share that information out with people. It's important that we share information with each other. I also want to show you another thing that if you get stuck on is, I'm going to grab a Micron, and Microns are a really cool pen. Derwent also makes one too, Line Makers, but they are archival ink. They're water and fade resistant. Nothing's waterproof. But they say waterproof on there. And these come in a various different point sizes. The 08 is, I think, a 0.45 millimeter. 0.5. So this is how they do their sizing, and then they have a little mark of exactly the size. So if you have a sheet of paper and you're really intimidating on getting started, you can do a little bit of a drawing with a pencil, and then you can go back in with your pen, color it over, let it dry for a second because it needs to set into the paper, and then take your eraser, erase it. This is the Moo eraser. I love it. And then, whoop, there we go. And then you can do, you know, a little petal here. Let's do like a fake little flower. And then you can go back in, so you can do a little sketch drawing. This is what urban sketchers do when they're doing some quick sketches, and they'll go back in with, let's do this one here, their watercolor, and let's do this. Let's see if silver works tonight for us. Oh, this one's probably not the best because this is pretty opaque, but you can go back in later and, oh, that doesn't really show up. Time out. Let me get something better for us. This is the bane of Ed's existence, is pan paints, but they're accessible paints for people for doing smaller areas of art. So normally you may want to spritz this down and get them all activated, or put a little drop of water so it's easy to kind of get going right away. And then we'll just color it in from there. So then you don't really have to do too much. And then Ed says you can scribble the pens on UPO paper, which is a plastic polyurethane paper, and transfer it to the brush. Yes, that's so true. Thank you, Ed, for throwing that out there. That's a good one to know about. Same with a Duralar. I will have sheets available of that and the UPO available at my shop if you ever need it. So isn't it great to have people help you out? Love it. So you can do your drawing and kind of color it in from there. And go from there. Ta-da! And you can go outside the line too. Kind of can make some neat looking effects. But this is just going to be super simple. I also want to encourage people to mix paint within their brush too. I kind of like to do that for fun, because you can get some really neat looking colors. Also, see this here with the the bleeding. Watercolor likes to go where other water is, so it kind of bled into there, but it makes a neat effect, so you can use it to your advantage. And if you're going to be working with color, you can kind of butt up against each other real close, and then kind of go in there a little later and fill those lines in. So, yeah. And so I'm going to pull this back up. Thank you for your patience with that. Well, there's too many things to show you guys. I'm just so excited. Oh. So I covered a little bit of the paper, and the paper, it's a whole ball game of stuff. I can talk to you further about that. I want to show you that this is some inexpensive pan paints, great for travel. These are some pan paints as well. These paints specifically can be used with dip pens, and you can do calligraphy. A lot of people like that. This particular type is more opaque, and so it will have good coverage. So you can't necessarily see lines or pencil lines when you're working with it. Similar to gouache. Also similar to, I'm going to show you guys really quick, is the Gansey Tambi Japanese watercolors. Just the nature of these watercolors here are more opaque. So sometimes watercolor, they're mostly opaque, or not opaque, transparent, but there are some that lean a little bit more opaque and non-opaque, even with tube colors. So you can find out that on some color charts that I have at the shop, and it will tell you, doesn't tell me exactly on here, but I have a color chart that tells you, and you can look that information up. But default, they're pretty transparent. And you can kind of test that. One of the best practices that I like to have people do when they get new tubes of watercolor or even pans is to make watercolor charts. This is a chart of my M-gram, and I purposely did a pencil line here so you could tell a little bit of the opacity, and I kind of pulled them out, but you can kind of do it however you wanted. I kind of wanted to make my own book at some point with what the colors that I had, and so you can see some of the bleed outs by pulling some of that color out. Some of Daniel Smith colors are very granular, so you can see that on the papers here. This is another Daniel Smith line color chart I have. This one I specifically purchased because these paints, because they are made with the actual minerals. So lapis lazuli, I don't know how to exactly say that, and I will mess it up 1,000 times, was the original ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue now is made synthetically, but I just wanted to see what that color looked like. Jadeite, garnet, look how pretty that is. And amethyst, beautiful. This is another reason also to do color charts. Is that so you know what you have. Sometimes when you have paints, you don't know exactly what color that's going to be, but it will show you right there. So this is my color chart of that. I also like to write the name of the chart. So this is the Koi Creative Art Colors, and it has the metallic pearlescence in there. I'm not sure if you can see with that reflection, those shininess. And the neon colors. These are the fine text that I kind of showed you earlier that are more opaque, so you can't even see the line with that. And these are gorgeous colors. This is another one of their sets that they have. So yeah, any hoozle. So pick a thing you want to do on your color charts. I know that a lot of people use, and I can't find my visual journal, little lines of what the colors are there. I also bought a new palette recently, and I have not made my own chart, so I made a pencil line drawing of the colors, and then I put, this happens to be my Daniel Smith palette. You can be particular or not particular on how you do it. I kind of wanted to separate these Daniel Smith colors from my M. Graham colors because my M. Graham box was getting full. And I have various types of palettes to put your paints in, and that's okay. As you can see, this is pretty dirty. That's okay. Don't wash it out, because all you have to do is take your wet brush, get some more water on it, and then you can pick that up and play with it. So I never really ever clean out my palettes because there's so much you can do. However, I did clean out some here because it got a little out of control. So you can choose whatever control you want on that. Some people just like to have clean palettes, and that's okay with them with that. So I see Rock Dad says looks shiny. Oh yeah, gotta love that. I'll show you some more shiny stuff on some black paper later that's going to be really cool. Hey Carrie Lynn, that's okay that you're late. Thanks for coming. I did not say what brush I'm using. This is I'll stop real quick and show you that. This is an Escoda Prada travel brush. It has a little hole in it. I just got it, and so you can kind of sop the water out, and then it goes right in to the travel holder and protects it. I love that it has the hole there so it can breathe, and then you can just pull it out and get it going when you're ready to go. It also has a really nice balance in your hand, and totally worth having in your wallet or purse, or even back pocket if you wanted to. So since Carrie mentioned the brushes, usually, just want to throw this out there, they'll come sometimes with a little plastic sleeve on it, as my other brushes roll off the table. When you get those, pull that off, don't put it back on, and just get rid of it. There it goes. And then as you can see here, there's some sizing there. That's to make it look pretty and for travel. This is another brush I have here. This is a Series 7 Winsor & Newton brush. This is one of my favorite. This is a Kolinsky Sable brush, and I just love it. But it looks like hell, but as soon as I get it wet and get it going, it comes to a beautiful point, and you can, let me get some watercolor going. And this is a bigger brush, so it comes to a beautiful point, and then you can rock and roll. It didn't dry in the right position, so it kind of looks a little weird, but it has beautiful points to it too. This particular Escoda brush is a synthetic one, but they make a real hairbrush as well, and when that's done drying, it will have crazy looking hair too, but that's okay. So I'm gonna quickly show you kind of a moment to get rid of the sizing, and then watch me spill this, and it's going to be amazing. So this is a rinse well water thing, and you can rinse your water with it, and it has like a little toilet flush. I wish it had noises, but I'll make one. Whoosh! Oh yeah. Now we have fresh clean water that will come out of this reservoir. And so I'm gonna take the brush and rub it into the water, and then now it's ready to go. So you always want to rinse that sizing out before you start using it. Oh, I'm gonna move that over. Okay, so ta-da! And then you can, start with your watercolor. Get a little wet. Doop doop doop, and voila! Here you go, rocking and rolling. Okay, and then this happens to be, since we're talking about brushes, is a really adorable Raphael precision brush. It also comes with a cool little set. They're made for traveling, and you can roll it up, and it's only that big. And so it's really adorable. It has a quill brush, has a flat kind of filberty brush, a tiny round, a flat, and a round, which I was using, but I'm going to take out so I don't let it dry there. And it even has a little filbert. How adorable. So anywho, that's that awesomeness. So if you want to be a minimalist, That's a really cool set. And I'm also putting together, I still need to work on it for later, and I'll send you guys a link to it, is a little tutorial on how to do stuff, and I'll probably do a whole nother video with just this, with some generic watercolor techniques. So I showed you using the marker, water-soluble marker, the Micron permanent marker. I'm a big fan of that style. A big key watercolor brush you should have. This is an inexpensive 1-inch flat that can hold a lot of water and make a lot of good strokes with, is this one here. Kind of the larger the brush gets, the more expensive, but this is a really under $5 brush. So I'm going to show you some fun watercolor called Brusho, because we're just going to have fun tonight. This is Brusho. It is a crystal watercolor, and what's really fun about it, I'm not going to do the white, is that the black one's the coolest one, so I'll do that. So I'm going to do a little area here with some fresh water, and I'm not sure if you can see the reflection, but it's a nice little square here. Boop, boop, doop, boop. Let that just sit for a moment. I don't want it too wet, but I don't want it too dry, because then you won't see the brilliance of it. So Ed says, and I totally learned from him, don't take this flap thing off. In fact, you should just cut it off so you're not tempted to rip it off. But poke some holes in the top, and treat it like salt and pepper, and go whoo! And you can also make it have bigger holes too if you wanted, but I'm just going to do the like 1 and 2. So as you can see here, the crystals kind of move around, and it's gorgeous. And then it dries, and you can also take it, and I'll show you here, when you mix up the pigment crystals, it's black. So this is a neat watercolor that has a lot of dimension to it. And it can make a big mess, so just know that. Also, what I just did right here is kind of a dry brush technique. So that makes some neat textures and stuff. And yes, Ed says Brusho is amazing. Yeah, he has knocked it out of the park with what he has created with Brusho. And I would encourage you, next time all of this craziness ends, I have some amazing examples of his work as well as Emily's as well with the Brusho. But man, the Brusho is just so cool. Eee. Just showing you an example of tube paints. This is kind of what they look like. They may vary on appearance with the brand. Better than the sprinkly one. Thanks, Dina. I love it. There's also different types of paints that are available in different grades of paint. I try to encourage people to buy the highest quality that they can afford, or just buy a little bit of a time, because the quality really does make a difference with your work and how you feel about your work at the end of your painting time. So I wanted to do a fun little resist thing too. This is a gold oil pastel, and I wanted to just do a couple little marks. You can use a crayon as well, but I don't know where my crayons went, but this is an oil pastel. And then I'm going to whip up. So if you do it, even with the colors, it's going to look really cool. I'm going to do a green. This is M. Graham's permanent green pale color. And I'm going to try and sop up a little bit of water. I have some cool tools to be able to sop up water at the shop, but I don't have that with me tonight. So you can just drag your brush across and it makes a little resist. And then it will dry with that gold still there. You can also use, this is just kind of like a fun kid version, but you can do some really neat mixed media pieces with the oil pastels and that sort of thing. I'm going to rinse my brush really quick. But most watercolorists use something called drawing gum, Misket, Frisket, you name it. So I think that's a pretty cool thing that people do. And now since I have some of this green still made up, I'm going to do another chunk of this wash over here. And, oh Dan, that's what I forgot. Can you grab me some salt?
Salt?
Salt, like table salt, or like the salt and pepper shaker thing. A cool thing you can do, but this is going to be an overnight thing. This is all ages, is that you can put rice down on your watercolor paper and let it dry overnight and then brush it off, and it does some neat effects. And then you can also use salt. I'm going to use some pink salt and let that also dry overnight, and it makes some neat sparkle effects, sprinkle crystallizing effects too. So let it dry and then wipe it off when it's done drying. Oh, another thing too is there's also liquid watercolors too that come in little jars. This is one by Marabou. They're from Germany. It's a really cool company that makes amazing products at a great price point. I think these are like under $3 a jar. There's also India ink and Doc Martens liquid watercolor, and you can use that as well. I'll just show you really quick with the magenta. I'm going to use the lid, and we're going to use the Escoda brush here. And then you can feather it out and do whatever, but it's pretty vivid stuff. This is just straight up out of the cap with a little bit of water. It's a backflow bleed into the green there. Isn't that pretty? You can do some really neat abstract stuff with the watercolors too. So I'm going to put the lid back on that. Don't spill that. Whoop. And okay, we're going to do a little bit of watercolor on the black paper now, just to show you. This is really beautiful paper, and I'm gonna, oh, one thing also to don't forget about is water soluble graphite is a great fun watercolor tool you can use to add in. You can do kind of a little mountain drawing here and vary your shapes, and then you can go back in with your brush and you can change up the color just and add a little bit of detail in there, and then do a little dry brush here. We'll make little clouds. There you go. So you can kind of do a lot with that. It also comes in a solid pan form too, if you ever want to play around with that. And then you can go in also later, since I still have some green, add some green to it. Oh, that wasn't very pigmented, sorry. There we go. That was a lot. But you were having fun. Do-do-do-do-do. So that will give you a nice muted kind of look, and then we'll leave that white for the snow. There's a pretty green mountain. And then, okay, so let's move on to the black paper here. So the black paper watercolor stuff is really fun and different. We're going to use, let's do the Fine Tech. This is from Germany. This is the pearlescent paper here. This is their 12 set, and then there's like this weird, this is my least favorite set, but it's still cool. It's more like fish stuff. I like to use this one over colors, like a glaze. Put a color down and then glaze it over with this kind of three-dimensional looking color. And this is a shiny one that when it's dry looks like those that I had earlier. Any hoozle. So flush the little toilet. Whoosh! Get some fresh water. Okay. Also, it's nice to have a little dabber near you to dab your brush. You can also use your paper too. I know Ed, I love his watercolors because he dabs and does a little test mark on the side of his, and I just think that that is really cool. I have a framed painting of his at my shop that has those brush marks exposed because I think that they're really special. So we're just going to get a little bit of water into each of these pans to get them moving and shaking. You can also use a little squirt bottle. Get that going. And there we go. So this is a little sparkle watercolor. On that, and then it's going to dry all your colors on the black watercolor paper, as well as like a black gesso if you're doing acrylic or pastel. Those colors are going to be a lot deeper in saturation because you have that black background pulling those colors deeper. So I'm just kind of doing a little rainbow here for fun. We all need a little bit of sunshine in our life right now. Ooh, look at that gold. So this is just gorgeous. Oh, I love that. Here's another looking gold, cool looking gold. This is the silver. Boop, boop, doop. And it just needs to sit a little longer and get a little bit more saturated, and then it will be more opaque. So there we go. The Gansey Tambi Japanese watercolor is a really cool one too, that have sparkles. Just be careful when if you do get these. These are like 20 bucks or so. They kind of booby trapped them, so be careful. Oh no, I lost them all. See, doesn't that suck if you're not ready for it? So just be prepared. Sometimes you can take a little bit of artist tape and glue it in there. I keep them in the box so they don't fly around. I have another customer, Crystal, who made this really cool. She bought an art bin box, and she has all of the Gansey Tambi Japanese watercolors, including that other box I showed you guys earlier. And she took them all out of the containers and glued them so that she can have easier access to them, which I think I'm going to end up doing because it's really hard to take these in and out of the package. The other day I did a little tutorial on watercolor pencils, and Inktense was one of them. This is a new watercolor palette that Inktense came out with by Derwent. So these are their same colors. I don't think these will really show up on the black, but let's give it a try. It's worth it. Oh, they do. Look at that. Look how bright and vibrant that is. So it's always worth testing things out. Ed, another one of he's watching tonight, Fred Gunderpants. He's really fantastic at testing things out and trying things out and seeing what happens with it. And I really appreciate that outlook on his use of his materials, because he finds out really new things that you can do with your materials by just playing around with them. And I find that that is really, really valuable, and more people need to do that in their life. Just to have fun, play, and do fun and do good things. Looks like not really getting the effect of the rice and stuff right now because it's still wet, but try it at home, see what happens, and have fun with it. One thing I want to tell you about, what I really like about the blocks of watercolor, is that instead of having to tape down your watercolor and having it move down and around, is that it stays on your, it will stay taut. There might be a little bit of wrinkle, but then it will dry flat and you can just peel it right off right here. There's a little thing. Note to you guys, don't use like a weird palette knife, or, I mean, you can use a palette knife, but make sure it's cleaner than what I have. Or a credit card or your fingernail to wipe it off. But I used a butter knife one time and I scraped all around the edges of the paper underneath, and then it just ruined that sheet of paper, and it just was not cool. So I had to do art and then cut it out or tear it out to make it look halfway decent. Unless it's something that you want, then it's all no problem. And does anybody have any questions right now? I'm happy to answer them. This was just supposed to be kind of a fun Friday night, get your hand moving, fun time. Ooh, you know what? Let's try this. I'll wait a minute and see if anybody posts anything. I'm going to do the white brusho on the black and see what happens. Oh, another tip, and I just totally did not follow my rules, is that the sparkle paper, pearlescent, pretty shimmer paint, make sure that you have a separate water container so you do not contaminate your real water container, because it gets all sparkly. So you can see these remnants of sparkles, and hopefully you can see there's a little bit of glitter in there. Not cool if you're making something that you want to not have glitter in it. So just note. So here's the white brusho. Pro tip, I'd store my brusho with the thumbtacks in it. Also, if you live in a moist environment like us on the Oregon coast, keep them in a Ziploc bag or something so that moisture doesn't get in there and then clump it up, and then your brusho's garbage. Oops, I guess that wasn't as wet as it should have been. There, let's do this more wet. It soaked in, I was talking too much. Ooh. So all the brusho ones act differently too. Some are more active than others. The white brusho didn't do exactly what I had anticipated, but that's okay. Still looks cool. Anywho. Okay. Well, thank you, Ed. Art says, art is to adults what play is to children. It's essential for growth. I totally agree with you on that. I think adults sometimes get caught up in trying to play house or whatever, and get way offline of being kind and nice, and we need to keep in mind our inner child and keep and play around with that and do good things for ourselves. Okay, so that's all I really wanted to kind of go over tonight. I'll go more in depth about other things like drawing gum and more brusho info and pan watercolor stuff, and some of the drawings later on. And so I encourage you, for homework, this is fun homework, is to go through your bag. This is one of my bags of watercolor here that I have in a nice little drawer in a container. Is make some color charts take some of your paper, even if it's just a small little dab. Just do it. It's so worth doing and knowing what those colors are, because as you can see, you can't tell what these colors are. So if you go in there, I'm going to use a different brush. I don't know why I had that. You don't know what color is that? I don't know. Oh my gosh, it's blue. Had no idea. So have a little chart of what you're working with. Also, never trust the labels on your products. This is just a representation of the product color and just to give you an idea of what's in it. But you really need to have a little spooge of it and play around with it. So I see Dina says she learned some helpful things, especially with the micron pens. Yes. And you know what do is with your lettering that you're working on, do your letters and then go back, just do a outline of color, and then take your pens you got. Let me see if I can do this quick for you. Take your pens that you got, and sorry this isn't the best version because your pens that you have are laying down a lot more pigment, which is really nice. So go back in there, get your brush wet. You can also use a water brush and feather it out and see what happens, because then you can get some neat dimensions there and then bring it out like that. So anyhoozle. So experiment, play around. You can mix them all up together. You can do pen with the watercolor if you want. And that's all good. So if you have questions, you can always contact me offline via email or the phone or at my shop. But right now everything's locked down. I'm going to see if I can transfer over to me. Always feel free to contact me. I love finding out answers for people. I have amazing distributors that are chock full of information. So if there's something I don't know, also I have customers like you that know things that can share that with me. And so by sharing that in your discoveries, it makes everything really amazing. So take the time tonight, make some color charts, and I recommend pick something consistent so you don't have like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and a 5 by 7 sheet and other random pieces of paper, because you'll lose them and you won't necessarily remember that you have them. So I want to just give a shout out to the visual journal because of the spine binding. You can rip it out if it's not what you want, and you can just use it as a book. So this happens to just be my art rip out book, but they have a smaller one that's a nicer little dictionary type of a product that you can use, and it's under $10. It's under $8. So yeah, if there's anything that you guys need in the meantime at the shop, also let me know. You guys know how to get a hold of me. If you need anything, I can try my best and do curbside pickup and that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that everybody is happy and healthy and stays well, and your mental health is an important part of being happy and healthy. So happy arting, have fun, and I would love to see what you end up creating. It is so inspiring for me to see what people make. I can't even express in words or visually how awesome that is when people share what they do. Even the little kids, or even somebody who doesn't think that they have any artistic ability, I'm just always flabbergasted. So, yep. Happy arting. See you guys later. Oh, and it says, oh, thank you, Carrie Lynn, and thank you, Ed, and thank you, Dina, and thank you, anybody else who's out there watching me. And
I think we should do one more art flush, or the water flush.
Oh, and let's do another art flush, because this is really fun. Okay, here's the toilet. Whoosh. And then you gotta kind of get a little squeeze. There you go. There's some fresh water. Yee! Whoosh. Oh, now I'm just wasting water. Oh! Oh, and these magical tools are under $20 as well. Okay, thank you. And then, Dan, I need your help to turn it off. So go create.